I'm Aldo. Welcome to Plays the Thing, the channel where I share my experiences prepping and playing tabletop role-playing games. So, it's one day before our session and I continue to prep for D&D 2024 Redmarch. Yesterday, I laid the foundations of the situation based on the characters and what they're interested in. And I also worked out some of the faction play. Today, I'm going to try to put some flesh on those bones and create a more robust adventure situation. I started doing that yesterday when I asked Claude to help me generate some competing summons that the characters would receive depending on what they did. So the first thing I did today was start to flesh out those different summons. The first summons involves Lord Ursinia calling Theron in for a crucial resistance mission. I wanted this to be a time-sensitive, high-stakes, and challenging situation because I picture Lord Ursinia as a man who's really been pushed to the brink. Claude AI told me that he's somebody who's willing to go to further lengths to do what he thinks he needs to do, and maybe a little bit ruthless about it. So I've been starting to think of him as one of those Star Trek original series captains or admirals that really pushes things to the limit, kind of like Commodore Decker in the Doomsday Machine. So I think that if Theron goes to talk to him, she's going to be faced with a situation that might be a little bit out of her depth. A quick clarification about Lord Ursinia. He was always part of Theron's backstory as her resistance leader father, but when Vex mentioned getting a direct message from him that brought him into the immediate spotlight, I suddenly needed to figure out what he was actually doing right now, rather than punting that question for third or fourth level or something like that. Anyway, let's turn towards the second summons. Yesterday, Claude suggested that Tharzug would leave a message saying that he expects Roman to be at a major ceremony. Claude also suggested that the ceremony was a consolidation ceremony where Tharzug would be attempting to essentially crown himself High King of the Orcs. Now, I'm not sure if this would make him High King of all the Ironhold regions or if it would make him High King of a subset of the Ironhold kingdoms, but the idea is that he would, if not have total and complete power over the Ironhold kingdoms, he would at least become a more powerful player in general. And he wants his son to be there for that consolidation ceremony. I probably need to come up with a more evocative name than consolidation ceremony, but whatever. That'll do for now. Again, this is something that Claude generated. I basically accepted this one whole cloth, and I like it because it's actually consistent with what I've set up already in the initial write-up for the Ironhold Kingdoms. This is something that I wouldn't have pushed so early in the campaign, but since Vex ramped up Lord Ursinia's activity, I think it makes sense to have Tharzug also intensify his activity and make a major political move like this. Now let's turn our attention to the third summons. Claude suggested having the Ashen Pact contact the party about their vault opening, awakening something dangerous. Now, the Ashen Pact is a cabal of sorcerers and wizards and scholars who are scouring the scarred lands for anything magical that they could use for their own purposes. So the thought that they might have information about what might happen if the vault is open is not necessarily a bad one. However, I'm not buying this one. The Ashen Pact simply wasn't that tuned in to what the PCs were doing, and nothing that dramatic happened at Varric's vault anyway. But here's what I do like. I like the idea that someone might have noticed the catalog materials the party borrowed to find that vault in the first place. So maybe when the characters return to Redmarch, there might be some awkward questions. This could turn into leverage, it could turn into opportunity. I'll keep it as a potential development rather than as a competing summons per se. Another possible summon suggested by Claude involved the Vultures, Redmarch's Thieves Guild, maybe offering some lucrative work. Similar logic here. Rather than formal summons, I'll just note that Roth's movements might have caught their attention. Being thieves themselves, they'd want to know how to cash in on whatever the parties discover. So far we have 2 hits and 2 misses for Claude in terms of things that it recommended to me. But here's where I think Claude really hit gold. One of the things that Claude suggested was that when the characters return to Redmarch, they'll find Tharzug's Black Talon guards everywhere and a heavily protected caravan in town. Why? Because Lady Mirren, Roman's mother and the woman who protected Theron during her captivity, is there on diplomatic mission. She's traveling south to rally support for Tharzug's consolidation ceremony, essentially trying to legitimize her husband's bid for power. She's accompanied by Master Corvain, who has sealed diplomatic pouches, and Sister Althea, a cleric bearing sacred artifacts for the ceremony. This creates immediate role-playing opportunities, espionage possibilities, and ways for the characters to potentially disrupt Tharzug's plans or get involved in them in any which way that they choose. So not really a competing summons, but an interesting situation for the characters to intersect with. But here's the key thing. I've set up all these competing summons and situations, but the characters might not even go back to Redmarch. If they head straight to Lord Ursinia or somewhere else entirely, most of this prep becomes background events happening without the characters being present at all. And that's okay. The fact that they will be happening in the world, regardless of whether the player characters notice or not, is something that's really exciting to me. Okay, so none of what I just described involved any new input from Claude. This is just me pulling up those original suggestions made by Claude, thinking through them, beefing them up, tweaking them, rejecting some of them, and otherwise making them my own. Basically letting my imagination run over the tidbits that were given to me by the AI. I did, however, return to AI today for some practical stuff. I knew we might have significant overland travel in this upcoming session. Redmarch is a half day from the vault, and I've placed Lord Ursinia's stronghold 3 days north through the Scarred Lands terrain. That's potentially 3.5 days of travel that needs to be interesting. So I fed Claude detailed information about the setting and stream of consciousness typed what I wanted. Atmospheric encounters showing wars, aftermath, faction representatives with their own agendas, magical corruption effects, historical echoes revealing the past, and bizarre monsters spawned by wartime chaos. And when I say stream of consciousness, I mean stream of consciousness. I basically just go into the prompt and I just start like mashing away just whatever pops into my mind, whatever I imagine, throw it out there. Sometimes it's very specific information, sometimes it's very general information, but I just throw it in there without any particular care to organize it in sentences or paragraphs or anything like that. The part I did try to be more careful about was my prompt for it to generate material for me. So anyway, when I hit send, Claude generated encounter tables with lightning speed. I've skinned through them and the results look cool and evocative, but I'll need to review them properly tomorrow before game time. Anyway, as I wind down for today, I'm pretty happy with what we've generated. The adventure sounds like it will have some good, meaningful decisions for the characters to make. We're bringing their personal situations into play. I like how Lord Ursinia is shaping up in my mind as a strategically brilliant but ethically questionable character shaped by the hardships he's had to endure. I still have to work out his plan more specifically, and I'm a little anxious about that because I haven't nailed it down, but I have a good measure of time tomorrow during the day to get stuff done. So that's when I'll have time to nail down his plan, and I'm sure that it'll all be ready to go. Another aspect that I'm really happy about is the inclusion of Lady Mirren as part of the situation. I think her presence, if they encounter her, will add some weight and some options to the whole proceedings. In terms of straight up action, I should be covered. I mean, I think, again, I only glanced at them, but I think that the tables that Claude generated for me will be interesting to work with. I like the evocative stuff that's on them so far. I'll have to look them over more carefully tomorrow, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Oh, and one more thing before I sign off. I should mention that Mario contacted me yesterday to say that he's not sure how he's feeling about Roman anymore. It's just a very different type of character than he usually plays, and he's not sure that he's feeling it. So he said he'd have to think about what to do with Roman. I told him it would be fine if he wanted to make a new character. I mean, I don't want somebody to play a character that they're not really into anymore, but I also asked him if that were the case, if I could maybe play Roman as an NPC at least for a short while, given how important he's become to the overall situation. He said he'd be okay with me running Roman as an NPC if I needed, but then he reached back out and asked me if it'd be okay for him to play him at least one more time this weekend if he decided to play. I said, of course, but I'm preparing for the possibility that he won't want to play him anymore. Well, that's that. Tomorrow I will put the final touches on all of this, and then we'll play. Hope it all goes okay. Whatever the case, I'll let you know soon enough. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and as always, I wish you good health, I wish you good cheer, I wish you good gaming. Goodbye.